I don't know about y'all, but I've been aware of Ron Paul and like libertarian politics. You'll see where this is going in a second. If you ever look around online of people who are just like anti-government and bad-mouthing things all the time. At the beginning, when I was younger, that was kind of attractive because it's like, oh, look, an enemy to fight, like wrong things going on. And then eventually I started to get frustrated by it because it was just complaining and bad-mouthing and not doing as much as people were talking about. Yeah. For all of the anger going around, it's like, but you're doing not that much about it, really. And you're talking about a whole bunch of things that you're not intending to ever influence. And so Bruce, if you would read this, Genesis 9.
Yep. The sons of Noah who went forth from the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham was the father of Canaan. These three were the sons of Noah, and from these the people of the whole earth were dispersed. Noah began to be a man of the soil, and he planted a vineyard. He drank of the wine and became drunk, and lay uncovered in his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father, and told his two brothers outside. Then Shem and Japheth took a garment, laid it on both their shoulders, and walked backwards, and covered the nakedness of their father. Their faces were turned backward, and they did not see their father's nakedness. When Noah awoke from his wine, and knew what his youngest son had done to him, he said, Cursed be Canaan, a servant of his brothers, a servant of servants shall he be to his brothers. He also said, Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant. May God enlarge Japheth, and let him dwell in the tents of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant.
Okay, so summarizing the story, Noah's drunk naked in his tent. Ham finds him, and instead of covering him himself, he goes out and he tells other people, like, hey, look what our father did. Come see. I want you to know about his failures, basically. And so his brothers, they cover their father's nakedness without looking on it. And so the lesson that I take away from that is when there's somebody in authority over me who has failed in something, Paul says in the New Testament, don't, if you're going to rebuke an older man, do it as you would a father. And so when people go and you rebuke the government, they're like, they want to tell everybody how they failed and sort of spill all the details, all the nakedness. And Shem and Japheth's response is, I'm going to cover it. Well, so you do have to acknowledge that it exists, that there's nakedness there. But they do it in a way without taking part in it, without looking at it, and then they cover it. They take responsibility for it. And then we can see, Mark, if you would read the Leviticus 18 passage, what happened to the descendants?
Okay, so this is Leviticus 18:24 to the end of the chapter. Defile not ye yourselves in any of these things, for in all these the nations are defiled, which I cast out before you, and the land is defiled. Therefore I do visit the iniquity thereof upon it, and the land itself vomiteth out her inhabitants. Ye shall therefore keep my statutes and my judgments, and shall not commit any of these abominations. Neither any of your own nation, neither any stranger that sojourneth among you. For all these abominations have the men of the land done, which were before you, and the land is defiled. That the land spew not you out also, when ye defile it, as it spewed out the nations that were before you. For whosoever shall commit any of these abominations, even the souls that commit them, shall be cut off from among their people. Therefore shall ye keep my ordinance, that ye commit not any one of these abominable customs, which were committed before you, and that ye defile not yourselves therein. I am the Lord your God.
So this is talking about the Canaanites, right? What is the whole, like if you scroll back, what is the whole chapter talking about is like the prevailing...
So the top of the chapter...
just like skim through the rest of rest of chapter 18. What's repeated?
Mm-hmm.
Uncovering the nakedness.
Right. Yeah, this is talking about Canaanites.
Yes, you shall not do after the doings of the land of Canaan.
Right, and it's like, don't uncover the nakedness of your sister, your brother, your father, your mother, your children, your aunt, your uncle, like all these things. So it seems like the curse of Canaan I know people will talk about like the curse of Ham and the curse of being black or something like that. I don't know that Scripture touches on that at all. What it does make clear is that Ham's sin passed on to the curse of Canaan, and basically what Ham did, Canaan's children do on steroids, which is Ham uncovered the nakedness of his father, and so then his descendants go on to uncover the nakedness of all of their relatives.
Do you think there's a reason? Because in law it warns you against looking for the nakedness of X, Y, and Z, just Jew against Jew, because you are exposing their private relationship with your father or mother, whatever the situation, whatever the incest element would be. But it doesn't seem that you're dealing anything specifically unique, because Canaan has the sin almost 1,000 years before this.
Right.
You know, it's a long time. It's like saying a sin of Charlemagne now is a pattern, because the looking upon the nakedness is just part of what societies do when they get depraved. You know, it doesn't matter if they're
It's
Canaanite
not unique to the Canaanites.
right. Yeah, I mean, the Egyptians had it as a feature, not a flaw. You know, they're always marrying their sisters and the like. So I'm not sure that the looking upon the nakedness becomes a particularly Canaanitish. I mean, they were wicked, that's for certain. But I'm more intrigued by your thought of how we deal with political investment, of how the brothers dealt with the problem in their father. You know,
Right.
He got drunk. He lay around naked. Got laughed at by one of his sons and gossiped, and that's why the punishment's not that big. One of his sons ends up having to be a slave for his uncles. It's a shameful, and it's a curse from Noah on his grandson, but not that big a deal. Other
At the same
than
time, he missed out on the blessings of the other brothers, right? Like when you look at the rest of the following passages and you look at the history of, I was reading John Calvin's commentary on this today, and it's very interesting to trace the history of the Shem, Japheth, what the multitudes, the fruitfulness of them after the blessings of Noah and after God blessed them through that. And the line of Ham just missed out so much on that. They got a lot of things much later on, but not as a direct result of just natural fruitfulness, right? Like they had to fight, they had to conquer, and then eventually they were the land that had to be conquered.
Man, do you think that's true? I mean, these guys, Canaan is the father of Heth and Sidon, so the Hittite Empire and the Phoenician Empire and the Egyptian Empire. So, it's kind of like
They're not all cursed.
Yeah,
It's
they
just
got
Canaan.
wonders of the world they built. And all the way down through antiquity, the Phoenician trade system was the standard of the world. Or it strikes me as if we look at, say, the rest of the Hamite people groups that maybe by John Calvin's time had become debased African sort of situations, but you're dealing with Middle Eastern superiority in the Hamite descent. It doesn't seem like there's any kind of federal headship relationship to the rest of time by Canaan's curse. It's like Canaan got cursed.
Right, not Ham. But
Not Ham,
Ham
but-
was the one who uncovered the nakedness, and then his son gets cursed.
Yeah, it's like saying, I'm selling one of your sons into slavery. That's basically it. It's not that Canaan did something wrong and he gets cursed, or any of his descendants, because you don't see this fault or this circumstance in the Canaanite, other than their moral perfidy.
What is the language in that Leviticus passage? Does it actually mention the uncovering the nakedness?
That's the phrase
I
that's
find is a
repeated.
very specific
Yeah, you
I
shall
don't know.
not
To me,
uncover
it's
the
a-
nakedness of your father's sister. She is your father's relative. You
Yeah.
shall not uncover the nakedness of your mother's sister. She is your mother's relative.
Which I'd have to look into the Hebrew, is it the same as that passage in Genesis? But it's an odd, to me, that's just a striking,
It doesn't say, like,
the
we would think,
parallel is very,
we would think it would say something like, don't lie with your fathers.
Right.
Like, it would be very direct, but it's more of I think it's in a broader sense.
and I guess it could be more specific by specifically like, do not leave your father uncovered, would be the most specific,
Right,
but,
right.
but at the same time.
It seems the one with Noah is pretty clearly his buck nakedness, not a sexual act.
Correct.
Because Ham doesn't commit a sexual act on him, as far as we could tell.
Yeah.
He tells people immediately.
Yeah.
And his brothers know exactly what to do to remedy it. And it's very direct. So I think it's more like what establishes a way of, you might say, the range of privacy that the people of Israel were facing in basic modesty. That from Adam and Eve forward, they immediately covered their primary genitals with leaves because they knew they were naked.
Yeah, well, by that point in time, it was the tradition that any sort of nakedness was shameful, even for themselves. Like, they didn't even want to see. They were like,
Well, it would have been shameful for Shem and Japheth to even look on it. So it's like, it's not just the person who's naked, but the people looking on it are ashamed as well.
Yeah.
So it's something that spreads around.
And the nakedness, I think, just means pudenda, your primary genitals. It doesn't mean cultural shifts, ankles from here to there, or breasts or whatever. It's primary genitals. And because they're emblematic of the privacy of the marital relationship, they had to deal with it at times, as circumcision or examination in sickness or problems like that. There had to be a visual encounter, but it seems like there's this basic modesty along the sexual axis that says start with covering yourself up, for heaven's sake. And it means you're uncovering the relationship with your spouse. Doesn't it phrase it that way? In the
There's
Leviticus.
one, I think, where it says, don't uncover your mother's nakedness, for it is your father's nakedness.
Right.
yeah, I've heard
And don't uncover your father's, for it is your mother's.
yeah.
Right, and the kind that there obviously there's a sexual element to it that to uncover would be participating, not a drunk guy getting uncovered on his own. He's the one doing the uncovering. Right. Ham just walks in on it.
Yeah, I think the lesson for me, sort of the immediate lesson in that is, well, what is our response when somebody in authority over us is doing something wrong and we know it? Do we go around and we tell everybody, hey, come look? Or do we take actions to cover it and take responsibility for it the way that Shem and Japheth did? They received a blessing. Ham did not. How do we respond when I see a local authority or a state or a federal authority? And here's where we get into deeper waters. We'll stop here for now. In the rest of this conversation, we discuss examples of properly correcting authority and what taking responsibility looks like. You can find the full episode at voluntarytheocracy.org and select Become a Member from the menu.